welcome to Magazine Builder Worlds. This is going to be a Fallout Wasteland Warfare scratch build. Yeah, I know. If you're waiting for a Necromunda build, really sorry. If you're waiting for a B&B build, sorry. Or even a Lord of the Rings one, I apologise. We're diversifying this time around, and it's all the fault of a guy called Andy Tilley, who is one of my patrons on Patreon. He won my inaugural Patrons competition to suggest a piece of scenery, and I will build it for you. We'll get to that in a minute. I would say thank you to all these patrons who have signed up at patreon.com/MagratheaBuilderWorlds. These guys over here, and these guys up here, all now support this page as well as all the other patrons who are listed at the end of this video today. So the plan was simple. On my Patreon page, what I do is 3 times a year now we have a competition where I invite patrons to write to me and tell me about a piece of scenery that they would like me to make for them, and I choose one as the best one there, the most suitable one at the time, and I'll make it for that patron free of charge. And Andy Tilley, who has won this particular prize, his suggestion was kind of like laying down a challenge, really. There was a definite gauntlet thrown down. To paraphrase, he said, I really like what you do, but it's very kind of like angular and blocky and nice kind of like straight timbers and industrial and that kind of thing. How about making something curvy, like a 1950s diner? A post-apocalyptic wrecked 1950s diner, suitable to go with the game Fallout Wasteland Warfare, which is, I thought, a brilliant idea. I really like the idea of that. This has been sat around on a shelf for some time. I completely ignored it, like a large number of other games, because I haven't had an excuse to get it out. But now, fortunately, I'll be able to get out the figures, check them out as I use them whilst building this model, and we're going to see how we go. I don't know how many videos this particular build is going to take. It's going to be particularly challenging because we're going for curvy, and I find working with curvy stuff pretty difficult, but I'm going to give it my best shot. The piece of terrain has to be fit on a 12-inch by 12-inch board, and I'm going to see what I can come up with. So yeah, I'm going to go and have a quick head scratch and a tug or two on the beard, because that often helps with the kind of like thought process, and see what I can come up with. Right, before we go any further then, this video is being brought to you this time by Artiscapade, manufacturers of their Pro Series Fine Detail brush set. I've done a review of this paintbrush set elsewhere. Check it out. There's a link down below. I really quite like these brushes. I said to Artiscapade I wasn't going to go online and kind of like talk about any old rubbish, but actually I really quite like these brushes. Apart from anything else, 2 things very briefly. I like the shape, round ends, but these great nice triangular, contoured, easy to hold, easy to grip kind of thing. And the other thing for me, a painter like me, because let's face it, I'm not an expert painter, the thing I like about them is they're really very robust. I have treated those brushes with the contempt I normally show all brushes, and they have stood up pretty well. Held their shape, been easy to clean, they're pretty good to work with. So from that point of view, thanks to Artiscapade for sponsoring this episode of Magazine Builder Worlds. Thanks to the brushes, and you can get Artiscapade fine detail brush sets like this at a discount price if you use the link down below in the comment section. So please do, it's very cool. Anyway, back on with the build. So I've had a bit of a think. I've cut a piece of hardboard, what we call hardboard in the UK, and it's just over 12 inches square. It doesn't have to be square because it's going to end up being kind of like wobbly. One of the problems I've got, of course, is I've got no idea what the surface of the table this model is going to go on, so I'm going to kind of do fairly kind of curvy sides to the base first of all, which I'll cut out so then it'll blend on fairly easily. You know, most of it I'll just make kind of deserty scrub. There'll be a bit of a car park. Now, the cool thing about this is I've been thinking about this because thanks to Andy's challenge, he wants curvy stuff, And 1950s kind of like stuff. There's a lot of curvy kind of like things in 1950s aesthetic. Of course, there is a diner for Fallout Wasteland Warfare. It's called the Red Rocket. It's a kit you can buy, and I don't want to build anything like that because we're going to go for curves. I'm really going to go for curves. But I had this really cool idea. The puppy really likes flower pots, and the other day it was kicking this flower pot around the garden, and I thought, hey, actually that might make quite a cool basis for a diner. So I stole this from a dog, well, actually reclaimed it from a dog. It wasn't his in the first place, and I'm going to have a go at using this plastic flower pot as the basis for the diner. That will sit mostly on this board. It will give me a bit of car park space kind of thing outside. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with it yet. I really am kind of making this up as I go along. I haven't drawn anything this time like I normally do. I'm just going to see what works. I'm thinking of using 5mm XPS foam, because it will bend hopefully enough to go around the inside walls of the flower pot diner. And then I need to come up with kind of a cunning name for the flower pot diner, not the flower pot diner. I like the idea of using this, actually, to be quite honest, because it's a flower pot, so it's not a cylinder. It's thinner at the base than it is at the top, which will be quite cool, because that will make a more interesting model as it goes up. I'm going to cut windows into it. I'm going to line the inside of it, or maybe the outside of it, with the XPS foam. I'm not sure which. And that will give me a better texture to work with, but this is going to give me the shape, which is quite cool. So yeah, I'm going to get a Sharpie out or two and do some drawing and get some figures from the Fallout box set and see what it works like. Wish me luck. I've got no clue what I'm doing now. We are wandering off into the wasteland making this model. Okay, so I've taken my flower pot and I've measured the line around the top. I'm going to use the top, I think, because the lip hopefully is going to help give it rigidity. The base would too, but that will make the floor a little bit larger. I've got a couple of Fallout figures out, obviously using the human characters rather than the monsters to judge size. That's not a bad size. This building is definitely only a one-story kind of thing, so from that point of view, that's going to give quite a large floor space inside. So now I've got to do so. I'm going to cut it with, I think, actually this kind of plastic. If I can get into it with a craft knife like this, which I'm pretty damn sure I can, I might actually. I was thinking I might have to use a Dremel, but it's pretty soft plastic. I could probably use a really good pair of shears, to be quite honest. But we're in anyway. Let's see how it goes. This doesn't work now. I'm going to have knackered this flower pot, and at the minute it's the only one I've got of this size. All the others fit neatly over the dog's gob. This one I had to rescue, which that will mean going to a garden centre if I need to replace it. So wish me luck. Jolly good luck. Tally-ho. It's a little tougher than it looks. Cutting. I did this. I cut this. That is the 3-inch top bit, which I'm going to use. But I then decided I'd also cut the bottom off as well, because actually using the bottom, I think I'm going to use that as the base for the diner, and then that will sit on top of that like that, and then that can have, that'll be quite cool. So that will support it underneath. Going to take about 1 inch off the floor. We got an interesting, I know, got an interesting thing. I have no idea, like I said, what I'm doing. We're just going to make it up. I've got to cut out all around here, yeah, but I'll worry about that in a minute. I want to get the basic idea of what this diner is going to look like before I even worry about kind of the shape of the base and various other bits and pieces. So my next job, I think I'm going to be, is to cut out a floor to go in here. I was going to use 5mm XPS foam, but I think I'm actually going to use 5mm foam core I'm literally going to place that on the foam core, draw around the inside of it, cut it out, stick it in the bottom. That will help give that rigidity. And then I'm going to think about the outside of the board, sticking this down, and that will really kind of get me underway with this build. Interesting stuff. Yeah, thanks Andy. Okay, so now look, I've cut out the base. It's still, it's my 12-inch ruler, it's just a bit over 12 inches that way, and most of 12 inches that way, so this is the kind of size thing I was aiming to build. I've now worked out roughly the flowery pot things, kind of like gonna, maybe, I don't know where it's gonna go, kind of over here possibly. And I've also cut out a 5mm foam core base to go inside this thing, which I will stick in place with the aid of some masking tape as well, some Gorilla Glue, and that then is going to sit there like that. Apart from the fact that cool, most of the seconds they can't like drop down. Wait a minute, hang on. Look, well, cool. Gorilla tape, right? Hang on. I'll show you what I mean. Very briefly. There we go. So that's going to sit there like that. That is going to make up the actual diner part of the building, which I think will be alright. It's going to need a kind of walkway around the outside of some of it, because obviously it's raised up off the ground. But I think that might, do you know what? You know what? I think this might actually work. I'm going to draw some windows and some doors and shiz on this bit here to see how it works. And then I'm going to work out how I'm going to do the walkway. Oh, woo, go me, yeah. So in the spirit of this model, which is making up as I go along, I have drawn on roughly where I want windows to go. Door at the front, bearing in mind there's a 5mm floor in the bottom. Then big window on this side, small one, and then round here 2 big windows, and all of this bit then is the diner, and then round the back a door and a window that's going to be in the kind of like walled off kitchen area inside. I'm going to cut those out and see what it looks like. I hope it doesn't look too shit. I'm going to cut these windows and doors out and hope it still looks alright and makes sense when I've done that. When I've cut them out, I can then actually stick the floor in. That'll be quite important. I'm going to start working out how the whole thing goes together. Still very much a making this up as I go along kind of feel to this. So yeah, once again, thanks Andy. Okay, I really need to crack on with this. I've got kind of distracted recently by, well, work and life and stuff, actual real kind of important things. And this is how far I got. Yeah, so I've got this plastic flower pot with doors and windows cut out. Ooh, go me. I've stuck in the floor. Let's take these figures out. That's stuck in, that's not being held in by the tape now. That's completely stuck in there. I've got the bottom bit of the flower pot that's raised up. That's going to give my diner height off the ground, which is quite neat. I've now got a number of things to concern myself with. First of all, I think that the plastic isn't going to take paint very well. And I want it to have a kind of like a proper dinery look. So I've decided that what I'm going to do, I've tried different things, XPS foam and different thicknesses and stuff. None of it's going to work. But this is 0.8mm thick balsa wood. Flimsy is a flimsy thing that's really flimsy. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut and fit balsa wood on the inside and the outside of the diner, because that's going to give me a wooden surface that I can paint on, and it will give a slightly thicker kind of like feel to the whole building. So I'm going to start over here by the door, and I'm going to work my way around sticking the balsa in. I'm going to stick a bit, let it go off, and then I'm going to cut it with a craft knife, I think. And that way here, I'm still going to have this rim, which is going to be plastic, which I'll have to deal with. But then I'm probably going to make a lid to go over the top of that, so it doesn't matter from a paint point of view, because this is going to cause me a bit of grief. But I think that it will take a little while, but it will give a better texture on the outside. It will certainly take paint a lot better. So what I really need is a ruler and a knife, and I'm going to start cutting bits of balsa wood and sticking it in. And then what will happen, of course, is the fact that I will end up with balsa wood in the windows. I'll stick it in, I'll leave it to dry, and then I'll come back and cut this out of each window, obviously, because that's fine. The windows themselves will mostly be smashed in after the apocalypse. Nuclear bombs will have blown them all out and that kind of thing. So I'll end up with rickety bits of wood, rickety, just like Rick from the Young Ones there, rickety wood, nailed over the windows in some kind of haphazard fashion, which will add that kind of like extra layer of kind of interest to the whole model as well. So what do I need? I need a ruler and I need a jolly sharp knife. Okay, this is not a jolly sharp knife. This is manky, covered in glue, and probably not sharp at all. This kind of knife blade is the kind of thing that causes accidents. So if I'm going to use this, I'm going to have to change the blade of the knife. That's what we're going to do first. He says, not being able to force the actual knife open at all to get the bloody blade out. Maybe we could just give in and find a different knife. That would be easy. Oh no, there it goes. There we are. There we are. So I'm going to take that horrible looking blade, broken and knackered on both ends. I'm going to reach over, across the workshop, get a new blade, stick that in. It's important you use new blades. If you use old, rusted, blunt blades, you press harder, and when you press harder, you're more likely to slip and have an accident, stick the knife in you, than you are if the blade is sharp, which I know sounds counterintuitive, but I've said that this a number of times on my videos, but that is very much the case. With this really sharp knife, you can press lighter, you won't slip so much. So that's better. Sharp, brand new Stanley knife blade. Then what I need to do, I'm going to offer up my piece of balsa wood to the model. Take a pencil, draw a line, not bad. Take my ruler, where that's straight, going to 0.8mm balsa, 2 cuts straight through it. And I'm going to use good old reliable solvent based adhesive Yoo-hoo. Glue it pretty much all over, it's certainly heavy at the top and bottom. And I'm going to do this inside and out. I'm going to start with the inside first of all. Then I'll have to cut out all the windows and doors. Then I'll do the outside. Could be considered a little bit wasteful on the balsa wood front because I'm going to be cutting out these square panels. But on the other hand, they'll get used. That's not a problem. I don't tend to chuck balsa wood away. What I might find is that I'm going to get a gap here because the flower pot tapers slightly going up. So I'm going to end up with the gap, I should imagine, a V-shaped gap in between each plank. Now, I could be really, really clever here and split and work it out and cut them to fit and all the rest of it. But I'm not that clever. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to, wherever I get a V gap where I've got a join with balsa, I will end up with another bit of strap going over the top to cover up the hole, because it'll be a quick and easy fix. And I'm way behind with making this model, so quick and easy fix is kind of sounding good. Anyway, come back and I'll show you when I've got the whole thing clad on the inside. Right, here we go. As predicted, I've got V-shaped gaps in between each bit, because frankly life's too short to work out how to cut it to fit it all together. So when I cut these out, then there will be strips of balsa going over the gaps, which again will actually add to the interior texture of the diner and to the outside as well. I might be a little bit more careful where I line up and put my boards on the outside, mind you, because it's a bit random. They kind of like stop. This one over here, it's kind of like stops right on the edge of various other things, so we shall see. But I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait for this to completely dry. It's 24 hours. Well, till the morning anyway. Well, no, 24 hours because I'll be working in the morning. And I'll cut out all the windows and doors, and then I'll organise putting the strips on, and then I'll organise painting the cladding the outside. I've also got to think about what I'm going to do with the floor. I like the idea of knocking a few holes in the floor, although unless I then subsequently knock holes in the floor of this, it won't make a lot of difference. And I'm not planning on giving characters access to the underneath. Again, I think it might just need wooden floor, tiles. I'll have to see what else I can find. Oh, I might have just the thing. Actually, I might have just the thing. This might be it. Where is it? No, this stuff. This is cool. I don't know if this is going to show up very well on screen. This is a vinyl table mat that really doesn't show up on screen. But it's got a diamond texture on it. Look at that. I bought this to use for on Judge Dredd models. I'm still gonna, because I think it's going to be a really cool kind of light surface. But I might use that as the tiles on the floor in there. Oh, that could be quite funky. Although I'll make a right bloody mess of it going around the edge of this, because it's not a perfect circle. So I'll have to come up with a plan for that. But nevertheless, this could be quite a cool thing. I could take this, stick it on there, draw around it, cut it out and see whether that works or not. And then sit and trim it. Plan! I love it, I love it. Okay, alright. I've got to let this lot dry though before I can cut any more of it out, so see where we are. I've got no idea if this is going to work, or if I'm going to make a right mess of this, but I'm going to give it a go. Drawing round the outside of my diner with a pencil on the reverse of my textured vinyl. Can you see that in the light? Just about. It will show up when I start painting it, I promise. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it out. I'm going to cut out this rough circle, and I'm going to see if I can layer that inside. It's going to need a little bit of trimming, but let's do it with a pair of scissors. There we go. Pair of scissors. See that circle there? Of course you can't. Too much bloody light in the room. There it is. Right, let's cut it out. Right, talk quietly amongst yourself while I cut this bit out. Now it's almost certainly going to be too big because of course I drew around the outside, which includes the outside of the wall, not the inside, but let's just rough fit it and see what happens. You know, that ain't bad. That's going to look pretty cool. If I could just cut it down, obviously it doesn't look cool now. Looks a bit shonky. Look at that. That looks like... Don't ever ask me to come around your house and fit a vinyl floor in your bathroom. It won't bloody work. I'm going to have a little bit of a trim and a play, but I reckon I might be able to trim that down a little bit. Certainly if I put a wooden trim around the top of it so you can't see where I'm about to bodge it. Sorry Andy, I'm trying to give the impression that I'm making this model for you and I'm super professional and I know what I'm doing. But it's your fault because you suggested making a wasteland, Fallout Wasteland thing, and I've never done that before, so it's your fault. So this is Magrathea Builder of Worlds Cuts Corners, alright? And if you don't like it, you know what you can do. Right, that's too small bugger. Okay, so this is my cut out bit of vinyl. It's going to work quite well, I think, actually. I haven't stuck it in yet. I need to smooth it down where it's stuck in. Well, that's going to look quite cool. This is tomorrow. I'm now going to take my Stanley knife and cut out these fine bits of balsa, see what it looks like. And then I'm going to clad the outside. And I've also need to put strips over where the V's are, where we can still see the plastic. So So, wish me luck, jolly good luck. Here we go. This is a damn sharp knife, remember, so should be relatively easy to cut. In fact, the hardest bit to cut is where I've managed to put glue on the bolster, which made the bolster that much tougher. But I've got the door open on the workshop this evening, which is really important because it's a nice night, nice and warm and dry, but most importantly, using solvent-based glues you get a lot of smell, so well ventilated workspace is really important. Okay, so I'm going to put my vinyl floor in, smooth it out as best I can, and that is pretty good actually. I will still end up, I think, with some kind of wooden trim around the base of it. That will neaten it up. That's going to give me quite a cool texture of paint, which I'm really pleased with. And I've peeled out the odd bit, so I'm going to stick it back in. Right, so that's now the inside of the dyno. Yeah, I've got to add strips up wherever the wood joins. And it doesn't matter, this would really, if I was leaving this as wood, this kind of thing would really annoy me, because the grain is not going straight up, it's at an angle. But as this is all going to be painted, he'll be painted kind of like white and then grimy and manky. It won't matter too much. The challenge actually is going to be the weathering in this paint job. We all know how much I love painting for the scenery rather than building it. Not. Things what I've learnt about this vinyl. If you use solvent-based glue on it, the fabric back and the vinyl bits tend to separate and you get these bloody great big bubbles. Didn't know that was going to happen. Might have to cut out another bit of that and use PVA glue, because that is going to look terrible. So cutting out the windows hasn't worked out entirely great because of the nature of the way I've done it. I've roughed up wood in loads of places, chipped it out, and it hasn't been great. But because this is going to be a ruined building, I don't think it's going to matter too much. It will just add to the overall look. Where I've got these gaps, I think I've said before, I'm now going to put strips inside that will add to that. I've lost a complete bit here, I've got to stick something in there entirely, but we'll see how we go. But here is now the dyno wood clad with the floor in. The floor works really well, really pleased with that. So the next bit then, cut strips to go up the gaps and probably put in a bit of window trim, maybe, possibly. And we'll have a look, see. And then I think I'm going to need to work out the interior layout. It's going to need a kitchen area. This is, I imagine, the kitchen door and the window at the back here, so it needs a kind of wall, yeah, in here, just across there, and then a bar that comes the way around part of it as well. So most of this area is going to be dining area, but certainly needs one of those kind of back room, tiny little galley kitchen things where everything's cooked, and then a bar in front of it. So straps up the side next, and then we'll see what it looks like. Still not very confident with this model though, mind you, because I still do really have the feeling of making this up as I go along. But we shall see. We'll see what it comes out like at the end. Right, so now I've got uprights stuck on all the gaps between all the different bits of balsa wood are, which should then help disguise that and also give a bit more texture, make it better for painting, which is quite cool. I've got to leave these overnight to dry, go off solid before I trim anything up. So I'm going to start to think about now, I suppose, what's going on the base and how that's going to work. Now, originally I took the bottom part of the flower pot to stand up to give it height. I'm not sure if I'm going to use that steel. I could do. It would kind of work. Then I want some kind of car park. Let's turn this around this way around, because that needs to look down here. I need some car park down here, and then I'm going to need scrub and all the rest of it. And I have to think if there are going to be any other structures
I suppose a privy or a cupboard or something out the back would be quite cool as well. But this is starting to give us quite a good shape. I've decided whether I've broken off bits of balsa on a really thin veneer, I'm probably just going to paint that wrecked and ruined and black and dark and different colours to the outside. It'll probably help the overall ruined and wrecked look. These of course would have to be glazed originally, but because of the nuclear explosion, most of the glass is going to be out. I will end up with some broken bits of glass in, but I think I'm going to board up quite a few of these as well with like rickety nailed planks hammered up over the top, which will provide a load of cover for the characters inside, because at the moment it's quite an exposed kind of figure, but that will look pretty cool. So that's where we're at, I think. So I've got to let these uprights dry before I can trim anything. In the true nature of making this up as I'm going along, I have bitten the bullet and I've stuck the base of the flower pot to the base of the model using all-purpose glue. And as you can see, I'm now weighting this down with a bunch of heavy stuff. And again, I'm going to leave that overnight to go dry. And that is going to fix the diner itself in place on the model. And then I'm going to have to live with it. So from that point of view, then I've got to work out exactly what I'm going to do with it after that. I think I'm going to wooden clad the bottom of it, just like I've done the main part of the building, because it'll just give me a better, easier texture to paint. Get rid of these gaps in between as well. I'll then be able to mount the main diner onto the base, and that will fix that in place, and I'll be able to build the steps up on the platform outside and steps down the back and that kind of thing. So while I'm waiting for glue to dry in a couple of places, I'm making a large rectangular signboard that's going to go on the roof. I haven't worked out how I'm going to do the roof yet either, actually. I think I'm going to do the roof in a larger circle of foam core, again probably wood clad, which will hang over the edge, or maybe just sit flush to the top of this, and that'll sit in there, and I'll put some little blocks in it to stop it sliding off. Anyway, this is going to be the signboard that's going to sit on the top. We'll have the name of the diner on it, and there'll be a reveal of that when we get towards the end. I've got an idea for that, flower pot related. You might be able to guess if you're an old fart like me. But that I'll probably do a computerised sign or something, and then we'll smash holes in it in bits and pieces because of the apocalyptic damage. It'll also have struts out the back, making it stand up on the roof, which will then give a bunch of cover to characters that climb up there. So that'll be a playable, useful piece, I hope. Right, so these bits are still drying around the side. They're nearly done. But what I'm doing now is I'm starting to muck around with the interior. It's a diner. It needs to have some furniture in it. It looks like a diner, but like all the other models that I make, they're for wargaming. So you can't over-clutter these things, otherwise you can't get the models in. And Fallout figures come with ready moulded bases. Yeah, here's a human survivor, and their bases are, I don't know how clearly we can see that, they're 30mm, and the monsters and other creatures, the bad guys are even bigger. Now, most gaming systems have rules about if the base can't fit through a gap, then the figure can't fit through a gap. And clearly that's nonsense. And if you've ever been in one of these kind of like diners or any kind of small cafe, you know that they're a really tight squeeze. But what I am trying to do here is to work out some part of the interior. So I've got a Fallout figure down here, and then I've got a couple of Mantic terrain crate. They're actually more modern shop counters, but I think they'll work really quite well as the counter in the diner. And then I've drawn on the back over here, you can see some Sharpie lines that is going to make the kitchen. The kitchens in these places are always absolutely tiny, little galley kind of kitchens. So I'm going to make just balsa wood walls. I'm going to use, what's that? That's about 3mm balsa wood to make the walls. There'll be a door over here, and then I'm going to make sure there's a hatch here, so the waitresses and the counter staff can talk to whoever's in the kitchen. I've got the odd bit of Mantic scenery here. This is a stove, which is going to look quite a cool 4-ring burner, and somewhere I've got a little chest of drawers that's going to go. It's going to go in the kitchen as well. And again, I could put a sink in there and all sorts of other bits and pieces. But again, I really don't want to over clutter the model and stop models being out, figures being able to be moved around inside it. And it'll be the same when it comes to the seating, the booths and things. There are some really big windows in this model down here, and they ought to really have tables and benches, booths under each window, that kind of thing. But I think that's going to be impractical, so I'm going to assume that a lot of them have been ripped out and torn out by survivors, and there'll be wreckage on the floor and that kind of thing instead. A few chairs, broken tables, stools, I reckon, rather than going for full-on booths. We'll have to see. But this is my next plan, and that's build the kitchen walls in and see where we go from there. And then, of course, to find all this cack that's going to go in there, the tables and the chairs and stuff, we will, of course, actually have to go digging through the cack. But not quite yet. Hang on, that might be in the next video. Purely by fluke, this red line here, the back wall of the kitchen, just happens to be exactly pretty much the same width as the bolster that's going to go in, which is really convenient. So this is going to be the wall to the kitchen, and then I'm going to cut 2 other bits of bolster to go here and here. I've got one bit cut out already. That'll have a door cut into it, and that needs to cut at an angle so it does actually go up against the wall, because the wall is a bit, of course, is slopes out. But then all I need to do is mark on here roughly what height my hatch would be for the server. And look, you see how accurate I'm being here. This is roughly going to be, I think, kind of the servery, I think, would be like that. And there'll be a bar on the kitchen side, something like that. I can you can hardly see that. I can actually put that on properly and make that all square, but that'll work quite nice, I think. So first thing is trying to cut this wall at a bit of an angle to make it fit the slight flaring of the wall. I'm literally doing that by eye. Let's see how that works. I'll tell you what, that ain't bad. Tiny bit more angle this way, a bit more off at the bottom, I think. That's what I like about this kind of model, actually, is the kind of experiment and see how I go. Sometimes with some of my models, like my B&B models and the Necromunda models, they're great fun, and I really like them, and I love the fact loads of people watch. It's really cool. But you kind of get into the zone. You just get into that kind of like mode of making that model, and you know how it goes together. And you can, if you know, if I didn't have a real job and I wasn't kind of making models on video, I could bang them out pretty quickly. But this is completely new to me, making this model, so I'm having to really think about this as I go, and there's a lot more fun for doing that point of view. So this now, that's cut nicely into, it's going to fit here real good, so I can mark that off there, can slice that off and be able to work out where the wall is. This is going to need a door. This is going to be the side. I've put those 2 little marks there. In fact, I can mark those onto the bolster. That's roughly the thickness of the door I want from the kitchen out into the diner. So, and this is where the wall is going to be. So I need to Draw now this line is perpendicular, best as I can make it. Let's cut that off. Yeah, people, this is kind of like actual creation. As we're having it, no script, no plan, just going for it. Right, so this is my kitchen back wall of the kitchen cut, which is pretty cool because like that gives me a servery. And now the neat bit about that, I think, is going to be the fact that I can. That gives multiple layers for characters to hide behind. A character can hide behind the bar in the actual diner, and can be shooting out of the back door through the servery, or is going to be in a position to be in the kitchen itself. You can just about see his legs through that shot there, can't you? And shooting as well. So that's got to be quite neat. And narrative is starting to build around about this place. I like the idea of this being a kind of like a gang's, a survivor's hideout. I mean, why wouldn't you? Apart from the fact it's got loads of ways in. You're a little bit off the ground, and you kind of like got good all-round view. And if there were 2 or 3 of you, it'd be quite good for protecting you. Of course, though, if you got attacked by loads of bad guys all at the same time, you'd be really quite vulnerable. But then you could shut yourself in that kitchen for that kind of like last desperate stand, because you've only got 2 doors in and only a couple of windows, which would be pretty neat. Apart from the fact, of course, that the wall is only made of wood, and anybody with anything choppy could just chop their way through it. I love watching American programs. American films, westerns, that kind of thing, and anything where all the buildings are made of wood and people shoot bullets willy-nilly through the wall all over the place. In the UK, most of our buildings are made from brick and concrete. It's a lot harder to shoot bullets through bricks. I am, of course, making this difficult for myself, mind you, because I'm sticking this kitchen in, and the problem with that is the fact that make it harder to paint. But if I don't stick it in, I've got no idea how the actual inside of the model is going to work out. It's easier if it's all stuck in, and then I can see what's what, as opposed to trying to visualise it all otherwise. So, yeah, I'm just going to have to get around that. I'll cope, I suppose. Right, what I'm going to do, before I go sticking this bit here in, is I want a little counter on the back behind it. So I'm going to make that now. What we're going to use, some of this square section on it, purely because it'll just be, that'll be easier. It won't be damn fiddly to put in afterwards. So I'm going to cut a bit more of that. Just taking a little square section of balsa wood, offering it up to the window. Actually, I'm going to make it wider. Make it wider than the hatch itself, because you know they could have plates and things on it. I'm going to make it lower too, because I'm going to put a slightly deeper bar on it. So here we go. There's our wall. I'm going to stick this bit of balsa on behind, we'll glue right across there. Stick that down below. Stick that down below the door, the window, a little hatch. I'm going to take a bit of this 3-4mm that I've all just now waste. And that's going to be, now look at that, I'm really pleased with that. Hey, that's cool. I can cut this now, then have it a bit deeper, and then that just goes behind the bar. And there's a servery, which means if nothing else, I could probably put a tiny bit of knackered. When I go digging through the cack, I might find, yeah. By putting that on, I might be able to go digging through the cack and find the odd bottle or can or plate, mug, that kind of thing. Place on that. But we'll add that kind of like lived in look, selling it as what it is, which is the serving hatch in the diner. Oh, I feel a bit better about this model now. I have to confess, I was getting a bit down and frustrated about the whole thing, to be quite honest. It's been a while since I've been able to do any model making, because I've had to get on and actually do real proper work, and both my wife and I haven't been very well. Yeah, it was starting to get to me because I hadn't made it, and I wasn't really sure what I was doing. But now back in, it's one of those perfect examples of get back in the workshop, sit back down the workbench, pull yourself together, get on with it, because actually it's working out alright. Pleased with that. So that's going to sit in here. Going to glue that in a moment, and that then is going to give me my kitchen area, which is pretty cool. I'll put a stove in there, I'm going to put a little cupboard in there, and then that's all I think I'm going to have in that. Otherwise, like I said, it's just going to get chogged up. Won't be able to move figures in and out with it, which is, of course, is the whole point of the model. So from that point of view, nothing else. I'm quite liking actually this big space over here next to the servery. It's going to be behind a bar. You could have menus on there, but I'm probably going to end up with Nuka-Cola posters and things like that. Got to be some Wasteland posters around somewhere, isn't there? Surely. So that'll be quite cool. Right, let's stick this wall in. Okay, so I decided that the whole thing is looking a little bit scruffy, which is okay because it's post-apocalyptic, but I want it to look like it was not scruffy to start off with. So what I've started to do is cut some curve windowsills in balsa wood, mostly by eye. I'm using a bit of a round foam core template to help me get the curve in it. But I'm just using these to cover up where I've got the thin balsa veneer and then the plastic and the thin balsa veneer, and they're going to look quite good. They'll give that, this is what it looked like before the whole thing got smashed up kind of affair. Bear in mind that most of these windows are going to end up with kind of like rickety planks of balsa wood nailed over them in place like that kind of thing, but I want them to look like they were pretty good in the first place. So I'm going to make these windowsills, probably just trim all the way around, which might take a little while, but it will be well worth it. So 3mm balsa wood, cut to size, cut out, stuck in, each one individual. So yeah, fiddly but worth it. So I'm bound to get asked how I'm doing this. And if I'm not asked, then, well, you're going to get it anyway. So look, this is how I'm making the windowsills. Taking a 3mm piece of balsa wood. Taking a failed cut out piece of foam core. It's kind of circular. Placing the kind of circular bit is about the same size as the one that actually ended up, well, this is the first one I cut out to fit inside the flower pot. So I'm placing it so it goes on both corners. It's giving me the right arc then roughly to draw onto with a pencil. So I'm getting that, can we see that there? This arc coming down here. And then I'm going to move it over. I'm estimating here 5 or 6 mils. Going to draw another arc on. This one's a bit large, but let's just draw those with a Sharpie, and you can see what I've got. This gives me my rough shape. Now, there we go. There's my rough shape. I'm going to cut this out, and then I'm going to fit it to the window and trim it. Let's see how we go. Finger on there, don't stick it in there. Going around, cutting around. There's a pencil groove that you can't really see in the Sharpie point of view. It's guiding my knife round. And that's my windowsill. Now, it's not an entirely perfect piece. Now I get to cut it by eye. Here's the actual model. This windowsill is going to go in there. It's overly long at the moment, look, which is fine. I'm going to cut that down to fit in one way or another. First of all, we can cut the angles out because it's got to go that way. Try that back in there. And then a lot of what I do is just by, some would say, more by luck than judgment. Trial and error. Trial and improvement, I think, is the term I used in school when I was teaching maths. Trial and improvement. And that fits my windowsill. Now every single one of the doors and windows has got frames. Above, windowsills and frames on each side. It actually makes the windows look far more window-like. So from that point of view, that's pretty cool. Happy with that. Now the next mission, I think, is to actually I'm going to put wood around the base of this, just so it looks like it's a wooden structure rather than just a flower pot thing. And then I want to make a bit of a roadway on it, and I'm going to do that with sandpaper. Just a part of the car park, I think, around here. Stick that down, and then I'm going to stick this bad boy on, and then actually make a roof for it. And I think that's going to be pretty much the first part of the build complete. Next build will be, part of it will be then build the detailing, painting, that kind of thing. So my wooden cladding's now going on around the bottom of the flower pot. I'm holding that in place with elastic bands to hold it in. I'm going to do exactly the same as I did on the upper part by putting up wooden strips. All the gaps are, and then the diner's going to sit on top of it like that, which would be cool. Obviously they're going to have to be steps up. I'd quite like a kind of walkway around the outside, to be quite honest. But now that's going to be, that will be for the next video. That's going to be detailing kind of thing. The next major thing that I want to do for this is I want to give the impression that there's tarmac and car park. So I'm going to do that using sandpaper. What I'm roughly going to do is I'm going to cut out, again using my failed template, we got that, didn't we? Right, yep. So I'm going to cut this bit of sandpaper out here. Really pleased to even throw away that piece of foam core in disgust because I may have messed it. It's been really useful. And this now is going to sit roughly around that. I'm going to cut a little bit more out, so it's a bit more, and then I'm going to shape this so there was car park out the front. This is a nice, decent, regular surface, better than the sand I normally use for this kind of thing. Right, so I think I've come to a natural end for this first part of this build. I was hoping to get on to making the roof, but actually I've got quite a lot of the structure done already, and I think I'm going to keep the roof until the next video. We're going to make the roof, and then we're going to add all the details and bits and pieces. So let's have a look at where we are stopping at today. We got the starters of the base, which has got its tarmac on it. This obviously will need a load of detailing next time. It needs stone and scrub and desert and all that kind of malarkey. The base of the diner is there. It's clad in wood, so that will paint up nicely. And then the main structure of the diner is going to sit on there quite nicely too. There's still quite a lot to do. Kitchen's in. I've got an idea about the layout of where the bar is going to go. Front door, all the windows and doors are framed. Obviously I'm going to have to add a set of steps or veranda here. It will need a set of steps at the back door of the kitchen over here. I might even add a little dunny or privy thunderbox out the back. And then yeah, it needs a roof. It needs the sign on the top. This is how far I've got with the sign. Not that impressive yet, but it's going to sit on there. And it's going to need painting and finishing off. So there's still quite a lot to do, but
but I've got to say I'm quite pleased with where we've got to. So obviously there's still quite a lot to do with this model, and I've quite enjoyed it as a challenge. It's taken me actually a couple of weeks to get it to this point, and I've got to admit I've been out of my comfort zone most of the time. It's not an aesthetic that I'm really familiar with, not like Necromunda or Burrows and Badgers or a Warhammer kind of thing. This is one that my references are Grease, Happy Days, and Back to the Future. So if you think I'm working on the right lines, if I'm going in the right direction, please do leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. If you think I've cocked it up and made a complete mess of it, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. I am not going back and going to trash the whole of this and start again. I've gone way too far down the line to do that. I'm going to carry this one through to the end. Next video then, there needs to be loads of details getting made. Roof, all the outside, all that kind of thing. Now, if this is the first of my videos you've seen, don't expect to have seen any other Fallout Wasteland Warfare videos. It's the first one I've done. There will be a second one, of course, the next one. So make sure you subscribe and see how this model turns out. And then go back and watch all my other content, Necromunda, Burrows and Badgers, all the other bits and pieces I've built. If you are a regular to this channel, thanks for sticking with me. If you're not one of my patrons, you might consider joining me over at Magathea Builder Worlds at patreon.com, Magathea Builder Worlds. Because then you could be in the running next time we have a competition in December for a custom built piece of scenery just for you. Not like this one, it'll be your choice. That's the whole idea. So, aside from that, thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video in Magathea Builder Worlds. Stick with it, come back, check it all out. Fingers crossed it'll end up okay. In the meantime, thanks very much for watching. Bye bye.